What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today, we're going to dive into my Blade Show haul. Let's get into it. So before I jump into the knives, I don't have too many, and these are going to be the knives that I used my Blade Show funds to pick up. So I know that sounds a little funny, but I'll explain it as we go through it. So first and foremost is going to be one of my favorite budget knife pickup from the show, and that is going to be the Sencut Serene. This one here really surprised me in person. When I went over to the booth, I checked out a couple of their variants because I do like to review budget knives on my channel. And this one here shocked me because while I know that Sencut does a really good job on their budget builds, this really surprised me because it feels so much more premium than what you would feel a budget knife or a sub $50 knife would be like. It is D2 steel, and I know that's going to turn some people off, but unless you really battle moisture in your area, you're not going to have to worry about corrosion. And I know it's not the toughest steel out there. It can potentially chip, but it does seem like Sencut does put a very good heat treat on their D2. And I have not encountered a lot of chipping when I've interacted with their D2 using it, even when cutting through cardboard, as nasty as that junk is. So I'm not going to dive into reviews for this video. As you can tell, I've definitely been handling and using it, but more so just really talking about why I made the purchase. So we're dealing with the aluminum scales here, and that's what I think takes this to the next level. Civivi, Sencut, they've really dialed in their button locks. Now, I will say on a little bit of the bigger knives, it does feel a little lackluster because it doesn't have quite the grip on all that steel. But because this one here is such a lightweight knife and it is a really thin blade stock, I mean, it is super, super thin. Really thin on there. I think this still does a good job. I've noticed when you start to get into too big of a knife, for whatever reason, they don't adjust the size of the button, where you do see that from like Kaiser, and you see that from CJRB, and other budget brands will create a larger diameter button for the bigger knife and increase the diameter of the plunge lock. And I think that helps the detent continue to feel snappy. Now, that's not to say this does not feel snappy. It feels really snappy, but when you kind of like lazily deploy it with the flipper tab, it doesn't feel super snappy, whereas with the thumb studs, it feels really dialed. Now, I don't want to do too much of a review here because, again, that's not really what it's about, but this was my most surprising budget knife. And there's two budget knives on here, but this was my most surprising pickup. I really liked this one. I love the price point and the color combinations, and I love that you're getting D2, which has such a great edge retention on it. It is a little tougher to sharpen, so you do want to kind of strop it as you go, I feel like, with D2. But it's a really beautiful knife, and they did a really good job with the aluminum on here. It's finished really well, and I am probably going to go ahead and swap out with the titanium pocket clip. I think that would just really complete the look on this one. So we're going to set this aside for right now, and we're going to jump into the next one. The next pickup on the list is going to be the most precious to me, and that's because it's not one that I purchased at all. It's actually one that my wife decided to buy for me for Father's Day. So it's going to be the show exclusive CJRB Echo. It is still in the AR RPM 9 blade steel. Beautiful stonewash on here. It has a fantastic edge on it. I love this blade shape. I love the thinness of this blade. It is really nice. The button lock on here, I mentioned it a minute ago. You can tell the diameter just a little bit bigger, and it makes a difference as you go up in blade size. I just really believe that helps with the detent feeling snappy. It has a nice stone wash on the titanium that looks really good. all blacked out hardware. And what made this the show exclusive is the fact that they preloaded or pre-installed the titanium pocket clip that you can buy separately. This knife is available out on the website. That link is down below. Take you right over to CJRB's website, and you just got to search Echo. It'll come right up, and you can see this particular variant. It's a great value. It's a really good deal for the money and what you're getting from the knife. You're getting a nice button lock with titanium that's still fairly lightweight for EDC, with a fantastic blade shape, fantastic finishes. And the AR RPM9 reminds me of like something between a 9CR and 10CR blade. I really like the way it's been performing, and I haven't had the maintenance yet, so I will report back on that if it is a pain, as everyone says, to sharpen, but I feel like CJRB probably has that dial. You get a reversible deep carry pocket clip, you even get a little lanyard barrel tucked in there. So I really like this one a lot, and again, super sentimental to me because the wife decided that she wanted to pick this up for me for Father's Day. So this is the third knife in my collection. And God bless my wife, my beautiful wife, walked around Blade Show for like 4 hours with me on the day that we did go in. I did tell her next year that I wasn't able to get everything done and see everything that I wanted to do in one day. And I kind of have a better idea, and I'm going to dive into that in another video if you're interested in that. But I definitely would change my game plan up a little bit. I think I did okay for my first trip. I did pretty good, but I definitely would do and can do some things differently. But she walked around with me all Blade Show, and I'm telling you guys, not even the least bit of interest in this hobby whatsoever. I get her takes on things like, what does it look like? You know, from someone that is not a knife enthusiast. Do you like the aesthetics? Don't you like the aesthetics? From a woman's perspective, you know, how does it feel in the hand? How doesn't it feel in the hand? And, you know, I did get her one pocket knife unrelated to Blade Show. I got her a Honey Badger because that's something that's kind of an inside thing in the family about Honey Badger. Don't care. So she really appreciates it, but it legit sits on the table for whenever she needs it. She's not going to be carrying it in her pocket or in her purse or anything like that. But this is such a great knife. This is the third CJRB Echo that I have owned, but I did sell the budget version of the button lock one since she got me this one. So I still just have the two now, but I love this knife. And again, very precious to me because my wife, who spent all day with me, actually picked that up for me for Father's Day. The next one is also kind of funny because, as I mentioned, I did try my best to get to booths and see folks. I had everything laid out on a printed out sheet of like circling where people were and writing it to where I could see it to try to get through quickly so I didn't have to be on my phone, because I was using my phone to record because I was trying to mitigate the gear that I was carrying around. And that's some of the good prep that I think that I did well. Unfortunately, I left the list here, so I ended up having to use the phone anyway, which is where I failed a little bit. But I missed some stops. And thanks and shout out to Dave, Sat2 Dave here on YouTube and over on Instagram. I was so excited, to meet him. And again, I'll get into that in another video. And I wish I would have recorded that, but I was so excited to see him. I legit dropped the phone down and cut it off to talk to him. So I was so happy that I was actually able to run into him because it was jam-packed on Friday. But back to my point, I reached out to him after I had left. I think it was the next day I was traveling home, and I just reached out and was like, hey, if you happen to go by, do you mind picking this model up for me? I wanted to go over there. They have one. I saw it where they posted on Instagram that it was going to be on the table, and without hesitation, I mean, he's just such a generous person, went over to the table, picked up the knife, but then he shipped it to me and it was like, hey, I threw in a surprise with the knife that you asked me to pick up. And I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't know what to expect. The knife that is, I don't know how else to describe it, but like really awesome to me because I'm loving the knife and enjoying it. But he also included the scales with the knife and advised me that it was a gift to me. And I'm just so blown away because I love the Voodoo. I am shocked by how much I actually like this knife because I liked the Raiden. But this knife here really just vibes with me, like how it feels in hand, all of the positions that you can use it with, the girthiness of it, profile of it, blade shape, hollow ground, the finishes on this. It feels like a really well done Bestech knife. I don't know who the OE is on this, but he included these Mars Valley fat carbon scales on here, and the color on here just really accents, and he picked them out, so he did a great job. They weren't on the knife. He picked the ones he said thought would look good with it and included them in there, and man, he killed it. I think these are absolute fire, man, just absolute fire. So I really like this knife a lot. As soon as it got here, I threw skiffs on there, and I probably will eventually do a disassembly because it is a little bit of a more complex disassembly, and I do have some feedback I'd like to give to Null Knives on that, on ways that I think that they can make it a little bit better, but we'll get into that later. But I really like this knife. I got to carry it all day today, and that's what made me want to go ahead and do this video now, because it's Thursday and I went Friday, so it's been about a week that I've been with these knives since Blade Show. But this is just such a great knife, and my brother Dave, man, I really appreciate you for this. I can't thank you enough. I love the knife, and these just really, I loved it with the black micarta, which is the ones that were on there, and I was like, well, I'm probably not going to be able to score anything with the fat carbon scales, and the black micarta looked really good because it was like that dark black, and it just looked so good together with the thumb studs on here and the blacked out hardware and that backspacer, man. But this just absolutely kills the knife. Like, it just takes it to another level. So the last knife, and this is where I talked about my Blade Show funds. So I moved a lot of inventory, right, to free up funds for Blade Show. I sold things that I didn't really want to sell, but I wanted to have the funds available to enjoy being able to shop a little bit, in addition to trying to record my first Blade Show recording, you know, trying to get some footage to bring back and get an idea of how I want to approach things in the future, and so on and so forth. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is probably going to shock everybody, is I sold my Umanzan. So I'm going to let that sink in for a second, because if you followed me for a while, you know how much I love the Zon. I love the Zon so much. And I did want to free up funds, but there was a specific knife that I wanted to free the funds up for, right? So you have to imagine, I bought knives and sold knives and bought knives and sold knives and worked my way up to have funds for an Umanzan, and then I had to chase it, which took almost a year to chase down a Zon. Now that they've hiked the price up a little bit and the economy is tough, you can find them sitting around in inventory for a little while, which is surprising, but they're more expensive right now. So you're probably asking yourself, well, what the heck did you buy? So those funds I consider Blade Show funds. What I did is I picked up a large Sebenza 31 Magna Cut in Cinco blade with the black inlay micarta scales. Now, this particular model is the one that Sat2 actually sent over with the wood scales. I forget what they're called. And the thickness of that is what actually made me like the Sebenza, the large Sebenza, again, because I had the plain Jane one and it just felt too thin in hand for me specifically compared to the Umanzan. But then with these inlays, which protrude out a little bit, it felt equal in thickness in hand and improved the ergonomics for me. Now I had the Tanto, which would be a little bit more difficult to sharpen because you have to change the angles. This Incinco blade is going to end up being easier to sharpen. Additionally, it does have a blade shape that still allows you to puncture like the Tanto, but you have the draw cuts, utility cuts, and things of that nature. It has a fantastic hollow ground blade. It has a very exciting Magna Cut steel done to 6364 HRC. I was able to keep my pocket clip and my lanyard tube filler to move over to this knife to give me that little bit of pop of blue that I really like on there. The only other thing that I could think of to do here is, if they offer it from Chris Reeves so I don't void my warranty, would be to pick up all blacked out hardware. I think that would look equally as good on here. As you can tell, it's not broken in at all. It does not move. I am pushing out pretty hard on the lock bar, but it is not, it's not anywhere near broken in. I think I've carried it once and fidgeted with it a little bit. I did take it apart. I put my own grease in there that I like. I think it's just a little bit more slick than the Chris Reeves lube, which is still a good lube. They send good stuff with their knives for sure, but I feel like this is a little bit more slick feeling. And you see I can almost, and I probably could if I wasn't sitting on the lock bar. Nope, I can almost get it to open. Wow, I didn't think it was going to open that third time, but I think the more time I spend with it, see, I had to use a little bit of wrist there. Hold on, let me try it. There we go, without any wrist. I think the more time I spend with this, the more it'll break in. And I just really like the pop of blue, but I think now with the dark micarta, I'm kind of wondering if I should just take it and do like a acid etch to it to kind of darken it up, and then do the same thing with that lanyard tube. I'll leave it there for a little bit until I decide what I want to do, because I feel like now that might offer enough contrast to where I don't need it, or I might try to go and black everything out. So we'll see. So those are all of the knives that I picked up with my Blade Show funds. Not everything was at Blade Show. Just the Chris Reeve wasn't at Blade Show. I picked that up after the fact. I picked it up at GP Knives though, and I really like those folks. I got to meet them. Unfortunately, some of my data on some of my footage was damaged, and like it was playing, but it stops and you only have the audio. And I haven't quite figured out if there's a way that I'll be able to salvage it. But anyway, my point being, the folks at GP Knives, really great. I am glad that I got to meet them and talk to them. I was sad that I didn't make it over to the Null Knives booth. I couldn't believe, I kicked myself after. I couldn't believe that I didn't get to them. But really loving the Voodoo, and it's even more special because Sat2 not only picked it up for me, but such a generous man. Picked up these fantastic scales, and I think just made the knife that much cooler in my opinion. And the one from my wife here, I love her. She's such a patient woman, and my best friend. She does anything and everything with me. Some stuff I know she doesn't want to do, but she still does it with me. But I reciprocate. I definitely promise I reciprocate. I go places with her that I would never go, being a red-blooded male for sure. But anyway, and the most surprising pickup for me in the budget territory is the Serene. If you don't have that knife, if you like button locks, it doesn't matter if you're in the premium end or in the budget end, the knife just kicks ass. That's everything from Blade Show. I will have another video coming out about 10 things. I think I'm going to do 10 things that I would recommend to prepare you just to go to Blade Show, even if you're not filming. And then I'll do a separate video of, if you have a channel and you haven't gone, or tips and tricks and things that I picked up that I will be doing for the next time as kind of what I learned on my own. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks and shout out to everyone out there leaving the likes, the comments, and that are subscribed. I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.